So excited
Hello.
to be here.
We're excited to have everyone here. We're excited to be here today.
Yes, yes, yes. And we're going to give everybody a minute to hop on. So just hang tight. We'll give everybody a minute because I know it takes a minute to jump on, but so excited to have you all here. We have a great hour planned for you. So I hope everyone has their lunches and is ready to go. All right. So, for those of you that are new on the show, welcome to Heal and Thrive with Liz and Louisa. And for those of you that are returning, thank you for continuing to spend your Wednesday lunch with us. We really appreciate it. And as always, we're just so excited to have you and have this space to share with all of you. So, thank you.
Yes.
Today, we're going to talk about healing emotional wounds and the symptoms of those wounds, as well as letting go, moving on. One of my favorite, I guess, analogies or metaphors of all of this is the butterfly, right? Going from the caterpillar to the butterfly. So I want to talk a little bit about that, and then we're also going to discuss the 14 steps of spiritual awakening, which I find fascinating. I really do. As well as I think throughout this whole process, it's really important to just discuss, the mind, and what that looks like, managing your mind and mindfulness, as well as just really good self care. And then, of course, we have our weekly questions from our audience. So we will make sure to share those as well at the very end. So excited to jump in and get started. So, who's ready? If you're
I
on,
am ready.
say
I am
hi,
ready.
let us know you're here. We want to hear from all of you.
Yes, we
All right,
do. Say hello and put in there any questions that hopefully we can get to if you have any.
for sure. Yes, please do. And what do you think, Louisa? You ready to kick this off?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. All right. So let's start with emotional wounds and their symptoms. So Louisa has this amazing visual for us that I'd love for her to bring up while I kind of talk to you a little bit about some of the wounds, because what we found is is the wounds and this beautiful chart, right? A lot of it is all core. And it's amazing the magic, right? As you start unfolding some of this stuff, the more you realize how it's all correlated. So it's pretty neat. And this is what we want to share with you. So, for anyone that knows me, knows I'm really big on books. Okay. And we came across this book. Actually, one of my girls brought this book to me. It's called The Origins of You. Okay. And I just really enjoyed going. So um, it says, me.
I can see and hear you. I did
Okay.
see it go a little slower for a second there, but it looks like it's back.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. All right. So keeping it real on live. So anyway, this
Yes.
book book is wonderful. For any of you that don't have it, make sure to grab a copy. It's really great. But anyway, a lot of the stuff I'm going to be sharing today is from that book, right? And so I want to talk to you a little bit. There's and how this. So the first wound is the worthiness wound. Okay? And it's what that wound is from. All of these wounds are based from childhood, right? And things that we were taught in childhood. So the worthiness wound, it's having a hard time believing and trusting that you're valuable and valued. So how I like to think of the worthiness wound is um, it's your worth, right? Like, what are you worth based on what you can give, is how it helps me make sense of it. So it's, you're feeling to need to perform and show up and be perfect in order to receive the love that you crave from the people you crave it from. So I hope that makes sense. But a lot of times, if you have the worthiness wound, the symptoms that you will carry is feeling like love is conditional, right? Based on what you're able to give. And it's also that unavailability, feeling like there's that sense of unavailability. The second wound is the belonging wound. And this one is really just growing up. If you ever felt denied, ignored, avoided, then this might fall true for you. And a lot of it is just feeling very unconfident, right? I love my, and in this book, she quotes by saying with the belonging wound, you are only free when you realize you belong no place, you belong every place, and no place at all. And really, what that means is that oneness is within you, right? That belonging is within you. No one else gives that to you. So you might be carrying a belonging wound if you carry some of these symptoms like ignoring and avoidance, if you feel like you have to control everything, if you have an intolerance and carry shame, if it carries right symptoms, if there's some social challenges there. So some of those symptoms are symptoms of the belonging wound. The priority wound is number 3, and I gotta tell you, this is me all day long. The priority wounding with you is like a parent saying to you growing up, "It's Sunday, don't bother your father while he's watching football." Okay? So it may sound like a parent ignoring you when you speak or brushing you off. So in a lot of ways, this shows up in our trying to control things by taking things personally, by deprioritizing others around you. And I know, certainly there's triggers of this. I grew up, again, very loving home, but it doesn't matter, because if you feel like you aren't in some ways because you're kind of dismissed, or you feel like you can't get that person's attention or time, that can create that wound within you. So just something to know. And the trust wound, which is number 4. Um, this one's harsh, right? Because it's really, you feel abandoned. You feel abandoned by a parent. You feel deceived or lied to by someone you love. Um, and it's hard to rebuild that trust, right? And this creates symptoms of a lot of hypervigilance, testing, self-sabotage, anxious attachment. I see this one a lot, a lot, a lot. Um, a lot of times when women come to me, they're very on alert, right? And they're just trying to kind of keep everything together. I say they're trying to keep all the balloons in the air, right? And they're always kind of looking out and trying to make sure that they can, handle anything that comes their way. A lot of times, they're either pushing people away, they're holding people really close because there is that fear, right? There's the fear of rejection, the fear of losing someone. And so that creates that within them. And then the last one is the safety wound. And the safety wound is where you grow up in a house that's very chaotic. It there's a lot of like abuse. And when I say abuse, it doesn't have to be physical. Abuse can be physical, emotional, it can be financial, it can look a lot of different ways, but certainly there is that abuse, negligence. It's just really an unhealthy environment, and that creates symptoms of just disassociation, living in fear, shutting down, right? So those are the the five main wounds that we carry, we've been kind of brought up with and carrying into adulthood. And certainly there's a ton more around this topic. Um, and would be happy to dive deeper into any of these with anybody. But also, feel free. The book, again, I can put it in the in the comments. It's a great book. Because I think it really gives a little bit more clarity around these wounds.
We can see you moving slowly, but the connections,
That's
yeah, the
okay.
connections, yeah, but I think we're good now.
Okay. All right. So, yeah. So, with this, if you look at the chart, you can kind of see how at the very bottom, and this really stood out for me, at the very bottom, how, a lot of those feelings of shame and fear, all of those are really, okay, thank you. I see it now. Guilt, right? At the bottom, how all of those are really associating with some of those wounds we just went through. And it's when we're able to start healing those wounds that we can raise our vibrations and our energy and start shifting into some of those lighter emotions, which, courage absolutely is one that helps lift you from that place of just feeling like so much negative energy, like you're just sitting in a lot of those negative emotions, to really being able to find the courage to lift you up and kind of carry you into a different level. I hope all this is making sense. Certainly, if you guys have any questions, throw them in. And Louise, I'd love to give you a moment to add anything you want to add to this.
Huh, yeah, of course. So one of the things is that you see in this chart here is like Lind is, when we get to that state, and I know it's probably a little bit hard to see right now, but when we get to that state of courage, is that's when you start to feel like, or start to realize, like, I am alive. I am alive. I am a person with wants, desires, needs. At least in my own experience, it was like, hey, I finally had the courage to look at me. I
Mm.
could, all of those other emotions that you work through, and it doesn't necessarily happen. And right, like for a lot of us, it doesn't necessarily happen. And, um, the, the, the shame may not be the first thing that you deal with. The guilt may not be the first thing, the second thing. It happens differently for all of us. It's not linear, but it it is important that I feel like when you do get to that stage of courage is really, I think, like an amazing turning point. It's like that, like that light bulb comes on essentially at that moment. Um, at least in my own experience. How was
So,
it for you?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know we talk about this a lot, but the healing process definitely, I think I had this misconception that when I started on this healing journey, that it was going to be a ladder, right? It was going to be like me just reaching the end zone, so to speak, and I could control it and set a time on it. And I was going to get there and I was going to do this and it was going to be great. And, the joke was on me because that was not the case at all. And I know we talked about this last night, but every
Yeah,
time you get to the end zone, it keeps going a little further
yeah,
out, right? And
yeah,
it's like, oh,
yeah.
I still have more work to do. I still have more work to do. And it's not linear, right? Like it's, I always say this, it's not a ladder, it's a jungle gym, because you could be feeling at your worst and then feel great. And then you think, oh, I'm healed. This is it. I'm great. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, like, nope, just kidding. There's more work to do. So I think we all kind of go experience that to some degree, but it's definitely it happens in its own timing, right? It's not, healing isn't something we get to control or manage, which I know is hard for some of us that like to control things, but um definitely one of those things that we have to just allow to happen as it happens, and believe. Belief is the biggest thing in all of this, is believing that, you're on the path you're supposed to be on, and that this will all kind of work out. Take what you're being taught and allow it to happen as it's happening. Don't try to put it in a box, force it, and put time around it. It's not something that you're going to be able to put in a box with a nice bow on top. That's not how this all works. It's messy. And for, the people that know me, I call it the messy middle, because it is messy. It's supposed to be messy. It's not pretty, right? You're going through a complete transformation, and because of that, it's going to be messy.
Yeah, and I would add to that that in the moment it doesn't feel this way, but that messiness is where you gain so much knowledge and experience and strength, and in that messiness is really like where you get to define yourself. You really are able to like, because you start to see like in that messiness, like, wait, do I choose to handle this in a way that this is what it's supposed to look like, or do I choose to handle it in a way that's authentic to me? You get to make so many choices in that messy middle, so many choices that, at the end of the day will bring you, when you get to what we think of as the other side, even though I feel like that other side uh, is like always ongoing and never ends because we're always growing, ideally.
Mhm.
When you get to that other side, you really look back and you're like, well, that was painful as all heck, but that is where I learned the most. That is
Oh,
where I grew the most.
I say it all the time. And, I think the more I go through this process, the more I still realize that, right? Like, there's not as many people that push my buttons today, but the ones that do, I'm like, thank you, because
Yeah.
you are teaching me, right? You're reminding
Yeah.
me that there's still something I need to be learning. I'm always learning, but you're teaching me. You're like my greatest teacher,
Yeah.
because it's like, okay, there's something still there that I need to heal and work on. So
Yeah.
it's not easy. And gosh, the people in my life know that. Easy. Um, but, it's how we grow and how we learn and evolve into our true selves, and there's something really beautiful about that.
There is. And that is, that is the beauty. I always say, how beautiful it is. And I can tell you from firsthand experience that in the messy middle, it did not, it does not feel that way. It is the complete opposite. But when you get to look back, you realize how much beauty you were creating in that moment. It was like a creative moment. Like if you think of, a visual artist, it's like that is when they're creating their masterpiece. And a reference is usually one of the things I hear is like when artists are creating, it's like you go anywhere near them, and it's even in their studios, for example, and it's a disaster. Nobody can walk in there, nobody knows what anything is. They do,
They
and
do.
that's all that matters. And that's all that matters, right? It's like as long as you are the one who knows what is happening in that messy middle, what it may look like from the outside is other people's problem, business, you know. But
Right.
you always embrace that. I think the one of the, at least for me, is like when I learned to start to embrace that, lean into it, you
Mhm.
know, the
Yeah.
gratefulness that you start to feel for those moments, like you said, when people do push your buttons, because you realize this is an opportunity for growth. This is another opportunity for growth. Maybe a painful one, maybe an undesirable one, but it is an opportunity for growth.
Yeah. It's, it is painful. It is because I think all of us at the end of the day, all we want is to feel free, to feel peace, to feel joy, to feel light. And when we're burdened with so much pain, it's hard to see outside of that, to see anything else,
Yeah,
and to believe anything else can be true.
yeah,
And that's why I was brought this work because I want to give people hope when they don't have it and teach people that, I was there. I'm been where you are. And I know firsthand how hard it is. And I know that on the other side of that is something that we all want, but we don't believe could be possible. I am so grateful for everything I went through because it brought me to where I am. And for the first time in my life, I don't need anything because everything I wanted was always there. I just didn't know where to find it. And lo and behold, it was always right here,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so,
yeah.
and
When
I could
um,
cry because it's just it's really it's beautiful.
it is. It's absolutely beautiful. And I think one of the things that I did throughout my process was I would always have papers hanging on my walls. I think we talked a little bit about that last time. Is for me, with life happening, so many things going on at the same time, it was so important to remember what I was trying to change my mind to always look at things a specific way. And I remember one of my very messy papers on my wall at one time is was it said on the other side of this pain is freedom.
So true.
And it's so true. And it's that freedom that we all seek, that we try to find in external factors and external things, whether it's things, people, um, but in reality, it's all within. It's all
It,
right here.
it is.
Yeah.
But, for people that are in the pain right now, that probably sounds like, okay, yeah, sure, everybody says that, but come on, like
Yes. Yeah. I was one of those people that was like, everybody says the same thing. Okay. Just what are you all saying? It's because you're all happy and
but here's what I wanna remind you, nobody is happy all the time, okay? We're not all happy, right? But the difference is, I think the biggest difference is, even in the hardest moments, it's not that it's how we look at it. Everything is how we look at it, right? And, a couple of years ago, if something happened, and I know I've said this, but it would ruin probably at least a full day, if not more. Where now if something happens, I have the toolbox, right? I know what tools I can pull out to help myself get through that and be okay, and it happens in a couple minutes. And again, it's looking at it like, what is this trying to teach me and how do I get through this versus, oh my gosh, a lot of times it was projecting. It was thinking the worst. It was that monkey brain, right? It was the blame game, it was the what ifs, it was all of those things versus, okay, let me just get still. Let me kind of look within. What is this saying to me? What is this teaching me? And how can I make the most out of this situation to go from where I am to where I want to be? What do I need to learn? What's the lesson? So, I don't think there's any real secret other than being able to really look at that from a different lens. What do you think, Louisa?
I totally agree. I think you're right. I think there is no secret. I think it's about training, like retraining your mindset, your thoughts, catching
Mhm.
yourself like in those moments where you are having those negative thoughts because we will. And especially when, I was talking to a friend last night and one of the things that he mentioned is like, well, yeah, but you're trying to undo 35 years of programming, you
Yeah,
know? That's
yeah,
not happen overnight. So you have to establish a method that's going to, you know, to change your mindset, because that is essential. It is that there's no magic pill. If somebody had made it, they'd be a gazillionaire. I would have bought it for sure. Um,
Me
and
too.
much easier, I'm sure. um, but it is, you have to, you create a little system, whatever systems work for you, and that may take time. For me, it was
Yeah.
putting the papers all around the walls, just everywhere that I went. Like, if I was in the kitchen and I was like, why do I have to cook dinner and tonight, this, 5-course meal? I would put a paper on there that reminded me that my kids just need a healthy meal. They don't need a 5-course. They don't want it most of the time. Um, so
They
it's
sure.
retraining. Yeah, so true. It's like we think they do, they don't. We spend their time and they're like, we don't want any of it. Um, but it's
Mhm.
retraining that mindset and putting into place whatever little things need to be put into place, whether that's sticky notes, whether that's phone reminders, apps that are going to help you. It's a shift in your mindset. And however long you've thought and viewed the world that way, allow
Mhm.
yourself about that same amount of time, even though they say it usually takes about twice as long to undo and unlearn something. Allow yourself some grace and understand that what you're trying to shift, what you're trying to fix, is not going to happen overnight. It is going to happen, but not overnight.
But you have to do the work.
You do every day, every day.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people just think, "Oh, if I go to the therapist or, if I write in the
Yeah.
journal, I'll be healed," but
Yeah.
it's not that easy. You have to really be invested in yourself, really want the outcome, and really be doing the work. It's just like anything. You don't get to the other side of anything unless you put in the work and you make that investment. I think a lot of us have a hard time investing in ourselves. It's a lot easier to put the focus on the outside. Um, and I know we talk a lot about this, but it's true, right? Like, it's a lot easier to look around and, think everything else is the cause for our
Yeah.
pain. A lot of it is, how are you contributing to that? Where are what are you bringing? Because if we're really leading with love, um, I don't think I think that's gonna change your perspective and how things affect you. So, I know Nicola Pera talks a lot about this, but, if we're leading with our hearts, it completely changes, by nature, our relationships.
Yeah. And it changes your life. Like it just does. It happens where it changes the moment you can be in a situation and your response is based out of love versus whatever external factors, because the external factors you have no control over. You only have control over yourself, how you respond, the way that you view it. And so the moment that you can lead from love, your life is so different. It
Absolutely.
is a different life. It is a life of bliss. I was telling Liz, I'm like, I think I need to pick up the dictionary again because I keep using the same words, but there's no other word to describe. It's bliss. It's very blissful because love is the most powerful thing that we can all experience, feel, emote is absolutely powerful. And when you are able to have love in and express that externally, because that almost automatically starts to happen,
Mhm.
you you really do you change the game. Essentially, you change your life, you change the life of people around you, because like we were saying earlier, I used to remember seeing these people that were happy all the time, and I would be like, no, stay away from me today. Stay away from me today. And it wasn't that they were happy all the time. That was my perception from the outside. It's that outside, external factors weren't leading them. What was leading them was their heart. They could see things from a compassionate standpoint versus
Mm,
a judgmental standpoint, which is where, when my journey started, that is definitely where I was. I could pass judgment on anything, anyone, the way the flowers grew, I had an opinion about that.
mm.
So
Well,
yeah.
I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm feeling courageous. I want to go off script.
Yeah.
How do you
Let's
feel?
go. I love it.
Because, um, oh, just because I want to. But
Yeah.
I, as you guys know, I write in my journal every day religiously because for me, that's my outlet and how I just feel what I need to feel, right? And I want to read you today's journal entry because why the heck not?
Yes. Why
you,
not? Why
you,
not?
you guys share all of your most vulnerable moments with me. I feel like I can do the same with you. Okay. I'm like a little nervous about this, but I'm going to do it.
We got this. You got this.
Okay. Here we go. I have come to learn my daughter is my greatest teacher, for she carries the last of my reactionary stressors, elevates my nervous system, and teaches me continuously, without fail, that I am still growing, learning. As much as I want to believe I'm at the goal line, she is a reminder that I'm not. I'm not sure whether I want to strangle her or thank her. Love shades, as I call them, well, just now actually, the glasses we look out of when we love somebody are very different than the glasses and the lens we see otherness with. Who pushes your buttons the most? Use that person as your gauge as to where you are in your own healing. My
Mhm.
greatest adversaries are my best teachers. I know better than to try and manage or control the future. You know the saying, when you tell God your plans, he laughs at you. Lead with faith and trust what has yet unfolded, because that's where the truth lies. Not your story. We all like to buffer the truth with our own version of the story as we see it from our own lens. However, there is only one real truth. When I accept that whatever is handed to me in this life is a gift, I can see it from a place of gratitude and love versus a place of resistance and rebuttal. Even the darkest of moments carry magic because those are the moments that teach us the most. If we are open to it, really stop to absorb it, we can see the beauty and magic that each moment carries. Get still and be one with yourself. What is being said to you? What do you need to hear? If we stop long enough to listen, we are always given the answers we seek. Be still and listen. Thank you for this beautiful awareness. Thank you, dear Lord, for all of your love and guidance on this journey. I am so very grateful. Love, Liz. And this is my baby.
Thank you so much for sharing that because not only is it absolutely beautiful, but I think it also goes to show that like our humanity, right? Like we like you're healed, right? Like we're healed and it doesn't mean that we're perfect, right? It
No,
means
far
we're
from it.
evolving and that we accept that.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
does. And that's why I can so relate, because there's still things that push my buttons, and there's still things that get me riled up, and I still call mom to have her help me through it. And that's probably going to be always the case. But I think it's important when we're in those moments to not judge ourselves, but show ourselves compassion and remind ourselves of our humanness, right?
Yeah.
We're not broken. We're all just on our own path. And I know I said this last night, but Ram Dass says it best. Your path is your path. And I think a lot of us are further on our path than we even realize and we give ourselves credit for. And so if you're in that place where you're feeling stuck or unsure, you're not going to get the answers from the outside. And I know we talked about this at book club last night, but no one's going to come and save you. No one's going to come and no one's going to be able to give you those answers because only you really know the answer. And so it's not looking outside of ourselves, but it's sitting and listening to what our heart says and leading with that, right?
Yeah. And one of the things that's important, I think, with what you said is, where there's darkness, that's where light comes in. Like, the
Yeah.
darkness, there's this contrast, right? That we always polarity, right? It's like the two. And so when there's darkness, there's the opportunity for light, for you to shine that light. Understanding, and Liz, like you just shared, is without judging yourself, because we are master judgers. I
Oh,
think for a lot of reasons, for a lot of reasons, for a lot of us, it's like, oh, because of the way we grew up, the way we judged ourselves. That was my experience. In my
mm,
home, I couldn't do anything right. There was nothing that I did that was right ever. And so I grew up with this really harsh, way to look at myself. And everything that I did by my own account was also never good enough. Um, and so it's important not to judge ourselves, because I think in the judgment, we lose the truth. We fail to see the reality of what it
mm,
is that we are going through, what we have gone through, and the
mm.
possibilities that exist in that moment, because we're failing to see what is actually potentially in front of us. Sometimes we can't even fathom it that far, for a while. But yeah, that judgment, that self-judging needs to we need to work through that. One of the first things in my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. But the question always lies, how do you, right? How do you stop judging yourself?
Yeah, how you stop judging yourself, I think it's different for everyone, for sure. What was your experience with that? How were you able to get through that?
Oh boy. um, Gosh, there's still moments. There's still moments where I do that, but I think the way I teach it is um, when you're aware of it, because awareness is the first thing in anything, right? Is to become aware and conscious of it. Once we become aware of it, it's okay, what am I thinking? Why am I thinking that? What's the root cause? Um, really getting to the bottom of it and understanding it, because I think once we do it naturally, by nature changes our perspective. And then it's allowing ourselves to reframe that to a better feeling thought. I think we tend to go to the worst place first. So it's how can I go from where I'm at to thinking something better or different? And if you can't do it for yourself, then find somebody who really loves you, supports you, and has your best in mind. Look to them and have them help you, because, sometimes we fake it till we make it. And we need our support group and our community, our tribe, however you want to say it, to step in and help us in the moments we can't do it for ourselves.
Yeah. And that's the empowerment that community gives you.
Oh, for sure. I wouldn't be where I am without my community. It's my everything. So, I want to talk about the butterfly.
Yes.
Are you good with?
Yes.
I want to talk about the butterfly because in this process of all of my changes, I think the butterfly has always kind of stood out to me for a lot of different reasons, but it's a great example for the healing journey, right? Um, and I call it the butterfly journey because it is. And where we start, the butterfly wasn't born a butterfly, right? It started as an ugly caterpillar.
Yeah, a very gross looking, nobody wants anything to do with it. Ugh, yeah.
Yeah. And what that caterpillar represents really is our wounds. As our wounds. The
All
aspects.
the parts,
Yeah.
sorry, all the parts of us that are ugly, that we don't like, that we just may have allowed external factors to create or identify for us, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think to me that's the caterpillar. Oh, all the ugly stuff.
Yeah, it's the part where excuse me, it's the part where it's no longer, when you're in the caterpillar, you're like, okay, I'm sitting in all this pain and I know that this isn't serving me. It's not allowing me to grow. You're kind of in that stagnant, stuck place, right? So then we hop into the cocoon, which, not as many were kind of like hidden, right? Because we're in a space of introspection and transformation. We're
Yeah.
kind of stepping into that healing process.
Yeah, and at one of the things about the butterfly effect, the butterfly is that, I mean, at that point, so caterpillar, I'm sorry, it doesn't know that it's about to take off, right? In that transformation space, in that space of all of the unknown, it doesn't know that.
No, and certainly when we're in this cocoon state is when we're most vulnerable because we're in a place where we don't have any sense of control. And then during that process, there's this transformation that happens, right? And we're going through this metamorphosis without even necessarily knowing it. We are. And once we break free and the butterfly emerges, which is what you're talking about, there's this mirror that releases us from the pain, right? As we unfold into this renewed sense of self. So we picture the butterfly taking flight, and the butterfly, to your point, didn't even know it was a butterfly, right? Because it just this magically kind of happened, this transformation. Um, but it was a new once it was at that point and it's taking off, it's this newfound freedom, right? And the coolest part is when it comes to that point, it's shedding all the baggage of the past as a distant memory, right? And it's allowing us to relieve that burden that we carried and allowing us to take flight into this rebirth and this new place in our life. And so when I look at that process, it's very much the healing process that we go through. We just don't go in a cocoon, right? Or have wings at the end, but it's still the same emotions and feelings as we go through that process,
Right,
right?
right. And yeah, and it's the same for us. It's, I mean, you know, like you said, we don't get the wings, unfortunately, the physical wings, but we, from another perspective, you see it as we do get wings because we get our freedom, our internal freedom, we get our peace, we get our, our healing. We are able to see the world differently. We're able to come from a place of love. That's what we get. I mean, the butterfly obviously gets, the beautiful colors and all that doesn't look so pretty from the outside for us. You can't see our physical change sometimes. Sometimes you can. That
Yep.
was my experience. I physically shed a lot of weight through the process of learning to love myself. But most often we can't see it. We cannot see the physical changes in ourselves. I think that's another reason why it's hard to understand, like, just like the butterfly, it's like it didn't know it was going to become this. There wasn't, it may not have seen for a physical change, some another butterfly become that. It didn't see the internal, well, in their case, the external changes.
No.
And in our case, it's hard to see the internal ones because we look the
No, and it all happened naturally. And just like our healing does, if we allow it to unfold by nature versus trying to control it and manage it, it does all happen the same, right? And it is all a very natural process. We just have to let go and trust and let things happen the way they're supposed to. And actually, if you want to share the 14 steps to spiritual awakening, I think that will also bring some enlightenment and some clarity for everybody. Share this with us, explain it.
So this is I want to get it all. Here we go, as big as we can. So this is the 14 phases of spiritual awakening, and as I shared with Liz, when I started to go through my spiritual awakening, I went through most of it on my by myself. I didn't know anybody else who'd gone through that, and I had already been a sort of loner, for lack of a better term, but when I started to go through it, I started to just the internet. I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Somebody please tell me what is happening to me. I don't know what is happening. And so I started to kind of piece together between my own experience and experiences that had been shared with me and other experiences that I, you know, um, could see other people going through and read about and so forth. And these 14 phases of spiritual awakening, I think, when Liz and I were looking at this, we're like, yeah, she was sharing with me, this is exactly what I went through. And for me, the first thing was beginning to question my life. When I realized that I would just literally look around. For me at the time, it was mostly the physical because I started to look around at this big house and these cars and all this stuff that I had acquired that was supposed to make me happy. I didn't understand why I wasn't happy. Why wasn't I happy? So I began to question everything in terms of that, and then I began to question the people in my life. Why are you in my life? And taking a really close look at why are these people in my life? What are they getting from me? What am I getting from them? Why are they still here? And I will share because I think this is important for the collective, for all of us to understand. I had already shed like 90% of my family, and I understand, like I grew up in a culture where it was like it's blood is thicker than water, no matter what. Just blood is thicker than water. And so shedding my family years prior was really hard. But that little bit of my family that I did have left, when I started to look around, I mean, that was painful because it was people that essentially I had chosen to keep in my life because I had already sort of gone through the process once, um, that I realized they were not in my life. And one of the things that we did talk about last night was, you want to find out who somebody really is. I shared with Liz and the book club last night is just let them know that you are not going to do something for them. Like say no to something that they're asking of you, and you will find out very quickly, why or what it is that they want from you. And I did that. There was about three people left in my family that I still had a connection with, a pretty close connection with, and I did that. And I accepting that answer was hard, but I was like, okay, so it's hard. I'm gonna cry it out. Here's 3 days. I allow myself 3 days, and then I'm like, okay, let's go. But yeah, then I started to question, my beliefs. And I really started, I grew up in a really, I don't want to say religious. We weren't super religious. We had a very loose religion, is what I call it. We practiced a loose religion, and I started to really look into that and kind of understand what I did and didn't align with. And then it's starting to expand my worldview. I really, it's interesting because I didn't see it that way at the time, but I started to like hang out with people from different cultures that I had always been afraid of, like because I'm like I just don't understand anything. Different cultures, different religions. I started to really expand my worldview, and I did a little bit of traveling during that time, which really helps that. And then become, then what happens is you become interested in spirituality and mysticism, and where that takes us is all different places for all of us. Then you start to contemplate, and you start to reflect inward, and you're like, okay, what if this is me, what if this is not? And then you get to this phase where you're just so confused and there's so much disillusion that it's kind of like starting over again, is what it felt like for me. Did you experience that in like the confusion and disillusion phase?
Um, I think for me, I've always had this desire to, probably everyone that knows me knows this. I think throughout my life, it was pretty consistent. I just always had this desire to grow and expand. And I know we talked about this last night too, but to grow and expand. And I always question why I kept losing people in my life. And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't until I gained clarity on that I really understood that we always have a choice, right? We have a choice to stay small, stuck, however you want to consider it, stay comfortable, I guess would be the best way to describe it because I think a lot of us choose to feel comfortable, to stay comfortable. It's easier.
Yeah.
Um, we have a choice to stay comfortable or to walk away from something that isn't serving us any longer and continue growing. And
Yeah.
it means kind of letting go and shedding things that are not going to allow us to keep lifting up and rising into our true authentic self.
Yeah.
And so I've lost a lot of friends over the years and a lot of really loving, meaningful relationships because I knew I owed it to myself to always be who I was always meant to be and to be true to myself. And Tom can testify to this. I've said to him many times over the years, there's one thing I ask of you that I will not budge on, and it's you either grow with me or we go our separate ways because at some point in all of our relationships, evolution is always happening. We always evolve and grow. And if two people aren't doing that together, it creates a gap. And when the gap happens, it widens and widens and widens until either you're just settling or it goes apart, right? So I think growth is the best gift, growing with somebody and really being able to elevate yourself and evolve with that person is the best gift you can give anybody and what will be a constant source of connection.
Right. That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful because it's so true. Um, it evolve like we just like the earth, like it's always, changing. It's always changing, and so are we. We're always evolving, and I
100.
think to be in a successful relationship, with any type of relationship, you do need to have that understanding that, hey, we're going to grow together. Because if there is not that basic understanding, then, what happens sometimes is like it naturally, like you said, it naturally just happens. But if two people don't have that understanding, then it can just keep going that way. But if they do, it's like it could start that way, but hey, okay, something's happening. Let's talk about it. We need to
Yeah.
come, you know?
Well, and it's like they say, people come into our life for a season or a reason, you know. And it's very true. There's some people that just come into our lives to teach us things, and then there's other people that come into our lives and they're there
Mm,
for a lot longer, but it's
yeah.
because those people are also, you know, doing the work and continuously growing and evolving. And I think this is a perfect segue because one of the questions we had from the audience today was, what are we to let go of, the pain itself or the source cause of the pain? Which I love that question.
It's a great question.
It's a
Um,
great question.
for myself, I think that I this I would not let go of my pain. I would let go of the source of the pain. I have never successfully grown from letting go of my pain. If I do not process my pain, I I it is unlikely that we're going to grow, that I'm going to change. I have a belief that there are two things in life that foundationally change people, and pain is one of them. I want to process the pain. The source of my pain, I don't want that. I don't want someone to cause me that pain. Someone, something, I don't want it to cause me pain. But if the pain has already been caused, I want to process it. I want to feel it through because that is where I'm going to grow. And that's where I'm going to make sure that whatever that source of pain is doesn't have that power over me again. What about
But
for
does
you?
that but does that conflict with our whole argument about the outside can't ruffle the inside?
But we're not at that place yet,
Explain.
right? So for me, it's like I wasn't at that place because so for me, I wasn't at that place to be able to say, you know, these external factors can affect me. Like now, do I have more knowledge and control over that? Yes, because the external factors, I have now the self confidence, I have the self awareness, I have the strength. I don't live in fear anymore of anything, whether it is for which it was for me, fear of like from a financial standpoint, like, do I want to be a single mother with two kids? Oh my gosh, like financially, that would freeze me to I could not do anything when I had those thoughts. So
Right.
it we were like for me at least when I allowed someone to cause me or something to cause me that much pain, it was because I wasn't in a place where I had self-control, where I had that inner peace and wisdom and love for myself
But what if you
to
do? What about right
what if
now?
you do? What if,
What if you
right now?
like
That's a good
what
question.
like what if you are in a place where you love yourself and are feeling really confident and good? Would you still remove that outside pain, or would you accept it for what it is and not, you know what I mean?
I
Because if
think it
you're he
depends
I
on the
guess I'm
cause.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think now it would depend on the cause. What about for you?
You know, if I'm being honest, I struggle with that. I do. And I think it's easier to do it in some fashions than others. And so to explain, I guess to explain, you know, I think it's easy to let go of things that I can let go of,
Hmm.
but it's very hard to let go of things that I guess I would say I can't let go of. So, for example, you know, I can let go of relationships like friendships, and I can let go of things that aren't great for me or healthy for me or serving me. But what about if it's your family? What about if it's your children? What about if it's your parents? What about if it's your, you know, your husband and all of those beliefs and ideas that you carried and that history you carry with that person? That that's hard. How do you let go of that?
That's hard. Yeah, that is really hard because it makes me think about my own children. And I have a teenager. Um, so, I mean, that's hard. That's a great point. I have not given that a lot of thought because, just to get real personal, because that's what we do here.
Yeah,
The source of, there has been, especially as I've changed, it's hard for my teenage son to really understand like who I am. He sees this version of me, and it's hard for him because I was the mother who, like, I would stay up if the game ended at 10. When he got home at 10:30 p.m., there was a, fresh home cooked meal for him. I would stay up to do that. And it's hard for him to get home. And I'm like, hey, if you want, there is something I left in the fridge. You can warm it up. It's very hard. And so
yeah, so true.
there have been like, yeah, there have been like some moments of difficulty with that, and there have been painful moments of things that he's relayed to me of about how he feels our actions, behaviors, and so when you mention it that way, I think that I've probably not giving that a lot of thought because I don't know. Like I'm not. It's my child. Like I'm not gonna. I'm not going to let my child go. Right.
Right.
Uh,
And that's my point, I
so
think.
yeah.
Here's what I think, because certainly I've thought a lot about this. I've had a lot of my own experience with this because certainly I had a lot of people in my life that weren't serving my greater purpose, but I also had to reconcile with that and decide what I could live with. And this, thank you, mom, for this, because my mother always said, think about if it's something you can live with or not, right? Like, can you live with
Mhm.
yourself with that decision?
Mhm.
And I think I've thought a lot about that. I think I think it depends. Every situation is different. I think if we cannot walk away or let go, and there's going to be situations like that, I think what you can do is set very rigid boundaries for yourself and do the best you can with navigating that. Um, because I think if we're able to set boundaries with it, it can help, right? It can help steer that. But again, I think it really depends on the situation. And I think we have to really get honest with ourselves and decide, is this something that is going to is this something that's gonna is I guess where I'm going with this is, for me, I think setting boundaries, creating space, and I think in the moments that are really hard, giving yourself that space and time to really sit with it before you respond, right? Because I think our initial reaction is always going to be like the pot of water boiling over. But I think if we can just kind of allow ourselves some time to calm down, we can show up and respond differently. But I think, who the I know who asked the question, but I think it's important that you look within. I'm always going to point you to that because you know the answer to that better than
You
anybody
do.
else.
You
And
do.
you know the truth. I think we just don't always want to admit to the truth
Yeah.
of what the right thing is in that moment. So I think it's really giving yourself time and space for clarity and understanding and then deciding what is going to be best. And don't sit in it too long, because if you sit in that decision mode, you're just going to make yourself crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, if
Or
you do
you'll
that.
freeze, one or the other. I like do that. I'm like, I don't. I'm just not gonna make a decision. Yeah. So.
You know what? I'm just going to walk away. Good luck. God bless. But
Yeah.
it is not a question that I think anybody can answer for anybody. I think it's a very personal decision. But I think at the end of the day, if something is bringing you pain and is a constant source of pain, if it's something you can let go of, you should. If it's something you can't, you have to find a way to still protect yourself and take care of yourself. And, obviously, putting that time and attention back into yourself as far as how can I allow myself to um, to really continue to heal and grow if I can't let go of that source of pain. So I hope that helps. I know that was maybe long and all over the place, but I hope that helped answer your question to some degree.
Yeah, I would just add, and I know you touched on this, but it just came to me, hold loving space. Sometimes
Yeah.
holding loving space to get to
Yeah.
that answer. Hold loving space. Yeah.
Yeah. And remember, not everyone's going to be where you are on this journey. And that's okay. They're not supposed to be. And I think it's accepting people for where they are, for where they're
Yeah.
at. And, we said this last night too, but when somebody shows you who they are, believe them because
Believe that.
that is the God's honest truth. Believe them because I promise you that's who they are.
Yeah. You don't want to wait 12 years to find out. I'm here to tell you that.
I
You
don't
do
want to wait
not
20
want to wait
years.
12 years to find out that who
Oh,
they showed you that first time that they were is
yes.
exactly who they were.
And I think you have to step into acceptance, accepting that is who they are and making a decision
Yeah.
based on that and not holding out hope that that's going to change because at the end of the day, it's going to disappoint you. People are who they are. And, what is it? Those who mind don't matter and those that matter don't mind. And
Mhm.
anybody that loves you and supports you for where you are, that's your people. And those that put it down or judge you, that's a clear sign they're not your people, right? So
Yeah.
just trust that.
Yeah. Yeah. And just one last thing that I would definitely say, I am big on tell me who you walk with and I'll tell you who you are. So think about that.
Ooh, yes, 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 yes. Jazz hands for that one. Absolutely. You can tell a lot you can tell a lot about people,
By the
um,
company.
yeah, by the company
Yeah.
they keep,
Yeah. Yep.
for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. So, and on that note, since we're 6 minutes over, and thank you for everybody who hung in there and stayed on longer. We hope this was helpful. As always, we hope that you enjoyed the time and what we shared with you. Please continue to send your questions, comments. We love to hear from you. And Louisa, I know next week is holiday week. Are we going to jump on or are we going
Oh.
to wait bypass for the following week?
Um, I don't know. We haven't talked about. Maybe we did talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, stay
we
tuned.
we
We'll
will
let
let
you
you know.
guys know.
Yeah,
We'll
we'll let you know.
But if we don't get to talk to any of you or all of you, we wish you a very happy holiday, Merry
Yeah.
Christmas, Happy
Yeah.
New Year's, and we
Yes.
are just so grateful for all the love and support in 2023. And I'm here to say I cannot wait to kick off 2024 with every single one of you. So thank you.
Me too. Me too. I'm excited, and I hope that you all love this, and that you all enjoy it, get something wonderful, beautiful out of it, just like we have in 2023, and that you will share this with all of your friends and family in 2024 as well, so we can all be on this journey together.
Absolutely. All right. Love you all. Hope everyone has a beautiful day. And remember, take care of you. Self care isn't selfish. Remember to take time for you during this crazy time of year. Okay. We love you all
Yes.
to the moon and back.
Yes. Happy holidays.